If you ask me, I think the insurance business is one of the best industries in the world, yet an industry that has a 92% failure rate in the first 12 months. But why is that? It's because people don't have systems they can rely on to bring dedicated prospects to their office every single day. Our industry grew from $200 billion to over $250 billion between 2020 and 2021. Hi, I'm Robert Hall, President of Affinity Advisory Network, AAN Wealth, and AAN Pride, the Total Agent Solution. I created a system called POD. It stands for Prospects and Professionals on Demand. I didn't want to work like other agents and rely on referrals every single year to try to make enough money to make ends meet. I wanted to know that I could pick the prospects that I wanted to work with every single day. And if I didn't want to work with that prospect, I could let them go and I knew another one was coming behind them in the next hour. POD is a proven system. It took me to over $15 million a year in new annuity sales. So let's break down POD. What is it and why do you need it in your practice? So when I started POD, I wanted to attract only the right clients at the right time. Here was the demographic that I went for. 72 years old, married, with kids, not using their money other than required minimum distributions. You might ask, wow, that's pretty specific. Why do you want that client? Well, I wanted that client because I was very good at using distribution-minded products that could really accelerate the growth and pass the assets on from generation to generation. The other reason I wanted it is because by the time they reach age 70, if they started working with their broker around retirement time, 55, 60, 65 years old, that relationship has kind of cooled off. The broker's not seeing them as often, so that rebuttal of, hey, I have a broker, kind of laid down a little bit. It wasn't quite as hard to fight that rebuttal. The other reason I liked it is because when I said, hey, I think you should do this fixed indexed annuity, or when I recommended this fixed indexed annuity, the client didn't have the rebuttal that they needed so much liquidity because they weren't using all the money except for required minimum distributions, which is an easy fix. We simply used RMD-friendly products. So why did I want this client? It was for a very specific reason. I wanted a client that would walk away from our meeting and go, wow, that was the smartest agent I've ever talked to. He taught me more in the last hour than I've learned in my entire life about estate planning and financial planning. I don't know how he knows all that, but I gotta see him again. That was the reaction I was looking for. How did I do it? Well, again, the system is called Prospects and Professionals on Demand. The prospect side was bring prospects in every hour on the hour that were educated and wanted to meet with us. And number two, the professionals. We recruited everybody that you needed to bring a multidisciplined approach to your client base. We made sure that you had attorneys to work with for estate planning, trusts, wills, advanced directives. We made sure that you had a CPA to do tax planning. We made sure that you had every type of insurance agent, whether that was a Medicare Advantage, supplement, property and casualty, life insurance, annuity. We made sure that you had VA accredited claims agents. We basically made sure that anytime a client had a question, you had an answer or someone on your team had an answer. Now, what does it sound like when a client comes in? Our system is designed so that when the client leaves the seminar, the first question they're going to ask you when they sit down is, how do I protect everything I've worked for over my entire life? I'm scared of losing that money to healthcare concerns as I age. I want to make sure that if I end up in an assisted living or skilled nursing facility that I'm not spending down all my assets that I've worked my entire life to build up. I want the money to go to my kids if I don't end up using it. You might be asking, how does POD work? Well, it works like this. Basically, we work with you to get you contracted with the best carriers in the country. After we get you contracted, we take you through training, both virtually and in real life. You always have availability to sit with any of our top advisors at any point to shadow and copy exactly what they're doing to help improve your practice. Once you actually join Affinity, you'll work with our Director of Advertising, Laura Fish. She'll basically do all of the research in your market. She'll find out all the market demographics and she'll make recommendations as to how you should advertise for the lunchtime events. We basically hold lunchtime events at mom and pop type restaurants. We're not telling you to do seminars at dinner time with lobster and steak and wine. That just generates a lot of plate lickers, and we all hate plate lickers if you've been in this industry for any length of time. So we wanted people at lunchtime that were interested in what we had to say. We don't buy high-end food, and we're only looking for 8 to 10 unique buying units in each event. That way, one person, you, the agent, can manage that flow of traffic and get appointments with everybody that's there. One thing that we do require is that you maintain a 65 to 70% set rate in the events. And trust me, if you're doing the seminar the way we teach you, you're going to at least get that. Now, after you do the lunchtime event, they're going to come in for a free consultation with you. When they come into the consultation, they're going to ask you, how can I protect everything that I've worked for over my entire life? I feel like it's susceptible to nursing homes, long-term care, skilled nursing facilities, and I don't carry long-term care insurance. And they're right. Here's how the magic happens though. This is what your pitch is going to sound like. Every state has state and federal benefits. We're going to teach you about those benefits, and this is what's going to make you stand head and shoulders above the rest of the agents in the industry. The pitch goes like this. Client walks in, says they want to protect their assets, and I say to Mr. and Mrs. Smith, what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to properly preserve and protect all of your assets by putting them into an asset preservation trust. By putting them into this trust, we're going to make you eligible for every state and federal benefit program available to you. In the state of Ohio, that's $6,000 for the waiver program, which, by the way, is only in 19 states. Ohio just happens to be one of them. And the SNF program, the Skilled Nursing Institutionalized Facilities program, that pays up to $12,000 a month. We're going to teach you how to rearrange your assets so that you can properly preserve and protect everything that you've worked for over your entire life and be eligible for these benefits. In the meantime, we're going to grow your overall asset base from $1 million to $2 million. We're going to pass it on as efficiently as possible. We're going to show you how to pay taxes for pennies on the dollar when you pass it to the next generation. And the best thing is, we're going to do this without an out-of-pocket expense. That might sound too good to be true, and it is. And what I mean by that is if you oversell what we do because it's so good, the client will say to you it's too good to be true. We're going to teach you the necessary steps that you need to make sure that this does not sound too good to be true, but we are going to make you the best in your area. Not only do I have the perfect prospecting system for you, but you have full access to me. I've spent the last 2 decades perfecting my craft. I do everything through the psychology of sales. I sell over $15 million a year in and year out, because I am 10 steps ahead of every client that I meet. I'm going to show you how to do it, and I'm going to leave you with this little tidbit. I want you to try it and tell me about it when we get together. Here we go. If I ask you a question about these 2 containers, if I said, please describe those 2 containers to me, what would you say? So you would say one's white, one's black. This means that your customer sorts through difference. He said one is white, one is black. You need to sell to that. So as an example, if your client has a brokerage account and you're trying to sell them an FIA, it would sound like this. Now, in this FIA, you're going to get upside potential, but you have no downside risk, which is completely different than your brokerage account. So did you hear the wording that I used? It was really focusing on using the difference because that's how he sorts. Guys, let's take this one step further because not every client is that easy. A client that sorts through difference is super easy to sell. But let's go a little bit further. And I say, sir, please describe those 2 containers to me. And your client says, they both hold liquids. Ah, this is different. The other client sorted through difference. This client sorts through sameness. So if I was selling to that same client that had a brokerage account and I'm trying to sell them an FIA, I would explain to them that you still can tie this to the S&P index, very similar to how you're invested in the S&P now. It's going to give you upside potential without the downside risk, and you're still going to have upside potential based on market gains. So kind of similar to what you have now, but eliminating the risk. Do you hear the language? I keep talking about similar, like what you have now. I want to make that client feel comfortable and feel like it's the same thing. Now let's take it to the final step. The final step is the most difficult of all clients. And I say to Mr. Client, could you please describe the 2 containers in front of me? Ah, the toughest client. This one's hard to find. Basically, it is a client that sorts through sameness with difference. Okay? Let's give a different example for this. Let's talk about a client that had a revocable living trust. You're in the estate planning meeting and you have the attorney in there, and the attorney's recommending an irrevocable trust. We have to sort sameness with difference. So it would sound like this. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, what the attorney said is that you should have an irrevocable trust which is going to do some of the same things that your trust does, like avoid probate. It's going to be a contract that protects your assets, so it's going to be very similar to what you have. However, the thing that's different about it is that it's actually going to make you eligible for state and federal benefits, which you're not eligible for in your current trust. Did you hear it? We sorted sameness with difference, and that's the most difficult client to have. Understand that these cues will happen during the sales process. You're not going to be able to set two mugs up there, obviously, and ask the client how they make their decisions. But ask the right questions, listen carefully, figure out if it's a client that sorts through sameness, a client that sorts through difference, or a client that actually sorts through sameness with difference. Take it home, try it out, let me know what you think. So there it is. We've covered all the highlights to POD, my secret formula to success for the last 2 decades. I'm giving it to you now, turnkey, from beginning to end. It's going to increase your appointments, increase your sales, and overall increase revenue. Click the link on my calendar and let's talk about how we're going to take your business to the next level.